When you hear the words first-person shooter, or FPS, you tend to think of the big titles like Call of Duty or Battlefield. But if you go back to when, in 1998, a small studio based in Bellevue, Washington, released the critically acclaimed Half-Life, it turned the genre upside down. Knowing fans were craving more Half-Life, the studio known as Valve spent 5 years and one source code leak developing Half-Life 2. Perhaps even more revered than the original, Half-Life 2 and its shiny new game engine, and rewriting what an FPS was with its engaging characters and story, 2004 was truly the year the genre was changed forever. But the question remained, how did this game revolutionize what a video game could be? While first-person shooter has the word shoot in it, it's more than just about combat. Many games before the original Half-Life were more focused on that than true narrative-based gameplay. And when in development, that was just what Half-Life was, another shooter, until the company hired Mark Laidlaw, who was a science fiction writer, and he gave the game a narrative. While the first game was based in the fictional Black Mesa research facility, the second game focused on a bigger scope with the player playing 20 years after the events of the first game, and in a world where the alien empire known as the Combine controls Earth. But to bring a game to life, you need good characters, and the voice actors do a thorough job portraying their parts, most notably the player's companion, Alex Vance, voiced by Merle Dandridge, and the mysterious G-Man, who's voiced by Mike Shapiro. The G-Man and his haunting stutters in his speech have become iconic, and Alex's upbeat attitude provides much-needed lighthearted moments to an otherwise dark series. Finally, following up on the first game's decision to only have you in the player's perspective with no cutscenes and having the main protagonist of the series not speak means you can really make Gordon Freeman whoever you want him to be. With seamless scripted sequences, the player never feels as if they are taken out of the character they are playing as. Advanced, yet broken at the same time. How many describe the Source engine, which has been around for nearly 20 years now. Developed by Valve to add more advanced puzzle elements to Half-Life and increase its realism through gameplay. While it added an extra challenge to the second game's development, the risk paid off. Its realistic physics and facial expressions added something unique to gaming at the time. When interacting with objects in the game, they would move, break, and react as they would in the real world. Ragdoll physics were programmed in. While maybe not the most accurate, it added a satisfying addition to combat. If you shot an enemy with a shotgun at close range, their body would go flying across the room, which can lead to many funny moments that add to its charm. But then, we go to Ravenholm. In the chapter, We Don't Go to Ravenholm, Gordon Freeman is separated from the Resistance and must traverse through an abandoned town filled with head crabs, little creatures that will latch onto a human's head and turn them into zombies. With limited ammo, Gordon must use his recently acquired zero-point energy field manipulator, or gravity gun for short, shows off the Source engine's capabilities. Using the gravity gun to pick up and fling almost anything at zombies, the player must use the environment as their weapon. Whether that be saw blades or paint cans, this chapter trains the player to use the gravity gun to make the game their playground. From then on, the player must learn to use even the most innocuous objects to their advantage. While the chapter provides narrative focus, a majority is spent fighting off hordes of zombies, with the game environment, which is a testament to how hard Valve worked to perfect the Source engine. You can make a game, but to really bring it to life, you need an atmosphere. That's where music comes in. Half-Life 2 didn't just add music to the game, it worked into the ambience to give us a much more lonely feel. Rarely do you hear a song outright, the exception being combat situation, but much of it is when you are traveling, as almost a reflection on your journey and how the Combine has affected Earth. But when you are in combat, is when Kelly Bailey's soundtrack really comes to life. The electronic synths and intense tempo really pump the player's adrenaline, and along with the combat gameplay, it really makes these situations feel exciting and worthwhile. The track CP Violation is probably the best example of this, as early in the game, you are chased through the fictional City 17 by the Combine Civil Protection. It's a fast song urging the player to run and show the urgency of the situation and the Combine closing in. But what about the more quiet moments in the game, where it is about reflecting on what the players experienced throughout the game? When in the desolate Outlands, the player must cross a bridge to advance to the next area. Lab Practicum, a lonely song with drawn-out synths and a distant piano beat. It sounds otherworldly and almost seems to penetrate the player's soul. It reminds us of the people that used to live in the Outlands before the Combine took over, and how alone the player really is in this chapter of the game. It's hard to make a video game that has received as many honors as Half-Life has received, but to follow up a game that many consider to be even better than the first, and receive just as many as the first, is nothing short of an incredible achievement. And the legacy the series has left is just as big. While fans had to wait 13 years for the next installment in the series, that being the VR prequel Half-Life Alyx, many will look back fondly on the memories Half-Life 2 created. The soundtrack has gone down as one of the most iconic in FPS history, and the source engine, which is still used to make games today, one being Titanfall 2 made by Respawn Entertainment. But perhaps the most important aspect being that you could make a great shooter game with an equally great story was how Half-Life 2 influenced the genre so much. Many don't believe many games with story-based campaigns such as Call of Duty would exist without Half-Life's impactful storytelling. That's all for now. See you next video.